Transportation literally drives our economy, moving raw materials to factories, finished products to markets, people to jobs and other destinations. But Wisconsin's transportation network is wearing out, and the way we fund transportation is outdated, relying primarily on gas taxes and vehicle registration fees. As cars and trucks become more fuel efficient, gas consumption and fuel tax revenues go down. The basic problem is, as the demands on our aging transportation network continue to grow, the money needed to address those needs is not keeping up. When we invest in transportation, it means more than just better roads, airways, railroads, or transit services. We're investing in mobility, public safety, our quality of life, and our economy. Good transportation comes with a cost, and the cost should be addressed equitably and efficiently. To address this challenge, the legislature created the 10-member Wisconsin Transportation Finance and Policy Commission, chaired by the state DOT secretary, who served as a non-voting member. Over the past year, commissioners examined current state and local transportation programs and the revenues supporting them. They looked at Wisconsin's projected transportation needs through the year 2024, and after much deliberation, developed a plan to fund those needs over the next decade. Wisconsin's comprehensive transportation network includes nearly 115,000 miles of federal, state, and local roadways, and nearly 14,000 bridges. It also includes public transit systems, railroads, airports, harbors, and a growing number of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. The Commission considered a variety of factors that threaten our economy and public mobility. Things like aging infrastructure, wear and tear on highways, freight needs in all modes, a growing need for transit and paratransit services, and tourism, bicycle, and pedestrian needs. Each year, Wisconsin invests over $3 billion in its statewide transportation network. About one-half of that supports the state highway system, and about one-third supports local roads and transit services. Paying the debt on bonds is taking up a larger portion of the transportation budget every year. Overall, it's a significant investment, but over the next 10 years, it will require even more just to retain current conditions. Looking at the current sources of transportation revenue, about 56% comes from state gas taxes and vehicle registration fees. Another 26% comes from federal funds, primarily from federal gas taxes. Compared with our Midwest neighbors, vehicle owners in the Badger State get a pretty good deal when it comes to paying for transportation. A Wisconsin motorist who travels about 12,000 miles a year currently pays about $254 annually in gas taxes and vehicle registration fees, just over 70 cents a day. A similar vehicle owner in Iowa or Minnesota pays over $400 annually. Wisconsin is the lowest among the Midwestern states. Over the next 10 years, state transportation revenues are projected to be flat. This is because modern cars and trucks are more fuel efficient. The number of miles traveled on the state's highways has been essentially flat in recent years, and vehicle registration revenue has also leveled off. There are other constraints on funding as well. Wisconsin's gas tax has not been adjusted for inflation since fuel tax indexing was repealed in 2006, meaning a dollar buys less over time. Meanwhile, maintenance and construction costs are growing, and additional borrowing through bonding is not a sustainable option over the long term. Mobility, public safety, and the economy will all be compromised without attention to the transportation network. Roads and bridges are deteriorating. Traffic congestion is growing in urban areas. People want transportation choice, including safe bicycle and pedestrian facilities and additional transit service. A large portion of state-owned railroads are operating at less than 25 miles per hour and cannot safely carry heavier, modern freight cars. Airport improvements are needed to comply with federal law, and waterways need dredging due to low water levels. To gain a better understanding of Wisconsin's transportation challenges, the Commission held over a dozen public meetings along with public listening sessions and focus groups around the state to hear firsthand from Wisconsin residents. Key themes that came from these meetings included the need for a safe, predictable, and reliable highway system, support for all modes, especially transit, and the need for improved county highways to support farms and businesses. Most focus group participants were willing to pay more for better transportation facilities and services where they live. People also want to be assured that current revenues are used wisely and that transportation investments make sense. The Wisconsin DOT's transparent tracking system, known as MAPS, sets goals and measures progress in 5 core areas: mobility, accountability, preservation, safety, and service. MAPS tells transportation officials and the general public where goals are being met and in which areas more work is needed. After spending over a year examining needs and listening to public input, the Commission developed a plan to meet the state's basic transportation challenges. The Commission's report, Keep Wisconsin Moving: Smart Investments, Measurable Results, details the issues and options considered and the recommendations ultimately put forward. The Commission's plan calls for investing about $480 million additional dollars in the state's multimodal transportation network annually over the next decade. Investments in roads and bridges, transit, airports, harbors, freight railroads, bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. The Commission's investment plan is not a wish list. Rather, it represents a balanced, responsible approach to making necessary investments that will maintain current conditions on our roadways and make needed improvements to other transportation modes. It's a plan that addresses declining revenues and the erosion of purchasing power due to inflation. To put Wisconsin's transportation network back on course to meet mobility and economic needs, the Commission recommends several steps to adequately fund the state's transportation future. A 5-cent increase in the state gas tax, a new mileage-based registration fee for passenger cars and light trucks of about 1 cent per mile, an increase in heavy truck registration fees, a $20 bump for renewing a Wisconsin driver's license every 8 years, and elimination of the sales tax exemption on trade-in vehicles. In addition, to help counties and municipalities fund their local roads and transit services, the Commission recommends creation of regional transportation authorities and the flexibility for areas under 100,000 in population to establish a 1/2 cent sales tax for transportation purposes. The Commission recommends establishing bonding limits to keep debt service under control and reinstituting motor fuel tax indexing to address inflation. Finally, the Commission recommends support for a constitutional amendment to protect the integrity of the Transportation Fund. People need to know that their transportation taxes and fees are being used to support the transportation network. So how will an individual motorist be impacted by the Commission's recommendations? The financial impact will vary based on the number of miles driven each year and the type of vehicle driven. The average driver who travels 12,000 miles per year in a vehicle that gets 22 miles per gallon can expect to pay an additional $120 annually, about 33 cents per day. The new mileage-based registration fee seems to generate the most questions. Under the Commission's recommendation, the first 3,000 miles would be exempt from the fee, providing some benefit to people who don't do much driving or who drive in other states. In addition, a 20,000-mile cap would help mitigate costs for those who drive a lot. The low-tech process recommended would not raise privacy concerns and would keep administrative costs to a minimum. Drivers would self-report their mileage as part of the annual vehicle registration process. The mileage-based fee would be in addition to the current flat registration fee of $75 for passenger vehicles and light trucks. Modernizing our transportation funding system and investing in transportation infrastructure and services holds great potential to benefit travelers and the state's economy. It would allow pressing transportation needs to be addressed, keep people and commerce flowing efficiently, and allow commuters a range of safe, reliable transportation options. It's important to remember that the Commission's recommendations to keep Wisconsin moving are only advisory. It will be up to the governor and the state legislature to decide how the transportation network will be funded and how transportation revenues will be invested. To learn more about Wisconsin's transportation challenges, the Commission's work, and its recommendations, check out the Commission's website and voice your opinion. Your input does make a difference.